All right, Ran, you got the first overall pick. You can take Garrett Nussmeier. You can take Arch Manning. Garrett Nussmeier is number one on my list as we sit here. Realistically, he's probably going to get drafted after Arch, should Arch come out. But right now, you got the first overall pick. You need a quarterback based only on the information you've seen. Are you taking Garrett Nussmeier or Arch Manning?
I'm taking Arch, and that's why I have Arch.
Oh,
That's why I have Arch as my number one, and Nussmeier right now is number two. I've kind of been tweaking my list. He's been down to three at one point, but I want to let the season kind of play out. Again, this guy, I love the way he plays. I love the moxie. I love the it that he has, and whether it's a game they won or lost, you can see the moments on tape where he gave his team a chance, and
mm-hmm.
you gotta roll with a guy like that. I mean, it is what it is. He has average size. He's small. He doesn't have the strongest arm. There are sometimes you can see, throws where you're like, oh, this guy's arm strength, is good. But then there's some times where the ball, will flutter a little bit. So I do think his arm overall is above average, but I think it's his anticipation, which we've talked about, with the previous quarterbacks, that allows the ball to get there quicker. I think he does a really good job of climbing the pocket. I love his toughness. I love his ability to just stand there and deliver the ball in the face of defenders. And so, I do think he will put the ball in harm's way because he's gonna play a little reckless and he's trying to make plays. But he just has a certain savvy. Again, we talked about the moxie and it. He has a savvy to evade the rush and extend plays. And I just like the way this guy plays. The game of football. And I saw him live last year, winning at LSU, and watched him practice. And he didn't have the best practice. If I'm being honest, he didn't have the best practice. But it was one of those days where he didn't have the best practice, but he was still unflappable. You didn't see him, hanging his head or sulking about it. It was just like, all right, whatever, on to the next one. And so for me, my comp for him is like he reminds me of Brock Purdy soon. You know,
Mm.
I I think he probably outwardly has more ish in his neck, if you will, than Brock outwardly. And trust me, Brock is a dog, and he harnesses his a little bit more than Nussmeier. But Nussmeier does have it. Now, the cool thing, not the cool thing, but the intriguing thing is, what if it's the Saints that are there with the first overall pick and Arch comes out and Nussmeier's dad is the OC there? Like, that is going to be an interesting conversation in that draft room for, Mickey Loomis and Jeff Ireland and Kellen Moore and Michael Parrington and all those guys to have to make a decision on Nussmeier or Arch Manning.
Right. And you mentioned Doug Nussmeier, Garrett's dad. He was in Philadelphia previously, played in the league as a quarterback, and now the OC in New Orleans with first year head coach Kellen Moore. 6'2", we saw that. He's 23 years old, which is fine. He sat behind Jaden Daniels, started last year. Even started the bowl game the year before when Jaden sat out at the end of his time at LSU. He slung it around then. I think last year Garrett started the season strong, and you talked about the anticipation throws and those things that jump out right away because you know that's going to translate. And presumably, when you get to the NFL, usually maybe LSU, Ohio State, Alabama are exceptions. The wide receivers get better, and they're going to have some dudes in that wide receiver room this year at LSU as well. They got some guys coming in, so there'll be no excuses there. But as the season went on in 2024 for Garrett Nussmeier, it felt like he felt the weight of trying to win those games and started being careless with the football and making poor decisions with the football that led to turnovers. But you talked about him keeping his team in the game. That Ole Miss game was nuts. His ability to make some of the throws he made on fourth down under pressure. So Brock Purdy, that comp makes all the sense in the world to me. My comp was a spectrum between Joe Burrow, top end, and 2024 Mac Jones when he had left the Patriots and went to the Jaguars. Now, if he were college version Mac Jones, and that's one of the things that scares me, Rand, college version of Mac Jones was dealing. I think Garrett's a little better athlete, maybe a little better arm. And there's a lot of things you could see, anticipation, all that other stuff, leadership, that didn't translate if everything wasn't perfect around him in the NFL. And perhaps coaching is one of those things. How do you guard against getting that version of Mac Jones instead of that version of Joe Burrow when you're trying to evaluate someone like Garrett Nussmeier? Is that above the next stuff, or is that physical tools that you can sort of suss up?
I think it's a little bit of both. And again, from the physical tools, they are what they are. And I know they have him listed as 6'2". I'd be very shocked if he was 6'2". I think he'll probably come in at that 6'1.5". I don't even know if he's 6'1". But so the physical stuff, that is what it is, right? That's mom and dad. You can't do anything about that. But I think that it's the neck up stuff that's going to take him, to the next level. And trust me, going through that LSU program, they have everything there possible to make these guys exceptional. You look at what Jaden Daniels did and the virtual reality stuff that they had, there that he took advantage of, that he still uses with the Commanders now. Like, they have everything there to allow him to see the game, at a higher level. And so I do think, he should grow. He should grow this year, and like you said, they have the weapons there at receiver, and Brian Kelly does have a good college offense, and it's going to allow him to spread the ball around. And they have some good solid backs that are returning this year. Now, they did lose some guys up front on the offensive line, but it's LSU. They're going to replenish and get more 5-star kids in there and continue to roll. But excited to really see him play and see where he takes it this year.
Yeah, nobody's going to feel sorry for LSU if they lose a couple tackles to the draft, given that it's LSU. I'll ask you this quickly. If Garrett Nussmeier had come out last year, would he have been a first-round pick?
I don't think so. I think he would have won in that second-round range. I could have seen him going 40 to the Saints as opposed to Tyler Shuck.
That's a good call. That's right. So Jackson Dart snuck into the first-round pick, 25 overall. Of course, Cam Ward went number 1, and then Tyler Shuck went 40th. Well, good news is Garrett's coming back. Other good news is that's our top 10 of the quarterbacks for summer scouting. And even better news, next week we're talking wide receivers. We're going to talk running backs, Ran. In the meantime, check out With the First Pick, wherever you get your podcast, scan that QR code, get Carthon's Corner, talk to all the GMs, talk to Agent Drew Rosenhaus, and, of course, all the goings-on with the NFL draft from now till eternity. See you guys later.